Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guest is the cartoonist behind comics like the Eisner Award-winning Do a Powerbomb, Murder Falcon, Extremity, and the upcoming The Transformers series at Skybound. It's Daniel Warren Johnson. Thanks for coming on, Daniel.
Hello.
So we are recording this a couple weeks after San Diego Comic-Con, an event that seemed like quite the experience for you with gigantic commissions and Eisner Award wins. How was it? Are you recovering after what seemed like a busy and exciting con for you?
I'm totally recovered. I was recovered 2 days after the show. It's a lot easier just walking around San Diego than like having my own table or booth at a Comic-Con. I just, I did some signings and I went to the Eisners and I shamelessly drew at the Eisners because I had so many commissions to do. So I'm over there like Jackie Estrada's like, welcome to the Eisners. And I'm like ripping tone off the paper and gluing it to the paper. Trying to be as quiet as possible. Yeah.
So you didn't table?
No. I never table at San Diego. It's too much. It's too hard to get a table, and the tables are too small, and Artist Alley is too crowded. I would much rather just go to my reps booth, Felix Comic Art. I do a signing there every day. Do a few signings at the Image booth. Definitely ghosted one day because I forgot that I had a signing on Sunday or Saturday. I forgot I had a signing on Saturday. Sorry, Image. And I did a signing at like the Skybound booth. So, I kind of roam at San Diego in a good way. And that's nice because it is so crazy. And, there's a lot of people and it's like, I'm like on my like social A game for so long. It's just nice to be able to turn it off for like an hour in between a signing. So it's a lot easier. When I'm at my booth, what ends up happening is I just end up staying there talking to people for like 8 hours and like being really nice. Which is, I feel like I'm a pretty nice person in general, but after 8 hours, I'm like, leave me alone.
It's funny. When I first started, when I first met you, it was at Emerald City. I don't even remember when. It was right when Extremity was about to come out. And I remember I would just stand at your table and like talk to you and Ramon Villalobos, and we would just like shoot the shit about whatever for like hours. And like not hours, but for a while. And
long time.
Yeah, it was for a while. And it's funny. I don't want to say that's one of the things you can't really do anymore, but you have so many commissions to do and you have so many other things to do, like kind of expectations on you. It almost is like that type of thing isn't really an option for you to some degree anymore.
It's not really. It's like straight up not. Like it's crazy. I can't get a breath in now, which is, I'm not complaining. This is awesome. But I would hang out. I'd talk with Ramon. I'd talk with you. I'd like just draw all day because nobody cared. And then what ended up happening is when I joined Felix, the art collectors, they kind of knew who I was and they would come and get a commission from me early. And so I just draw. But so I'd have like a little baby line in the beginning of the day, like right at 10 when the show opened. And I would draw off for straight until dinner and nobody would come up, maybe a few people, and I just drew a ton and it was fine. I just hung out and the people that would come up to talk to me, we had great conversations because there's no line.
Right.
And now it's completely different. I cannot draw at a show. There's no time. The lines are getting longer and it's crazy. But I'm determined to make every interaction that I have, even in a long line, a positive one. It's even more important, I feel, to give people the time that they deserve after spending money on my books and after waiting so long in line.
And sometimes you have to even work into the wee hours of the night with like, what was it, a 14x21 commission for David Mandel?
Yep, my art rep, Felix Comic Art. He knows Dave Mandel, and Dave Mandel is a big time memorabilia and art collector. He very kindly invited us to his second home where he has all of his art collections, and we saw like a film-worn Vader helmet. We saw the Tatooine outfit that Luke wears in A New Hope when he's watching the two suns. He has a Boba Fett helmet that's not screen used, but it was used on set. He's got production art from tons of movies. He has like the Book of Monster chomp that's in Harry Potter.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's in like a little glass case on the floor.
Is this a home or a museum?
Well, it is his house. It's like a condo, and it is more like a museum that hasn't been organized yet. I mean, there's stuff everywhere. There's barely room to move around. Literally, barely any room. He's got Calvin and Hobbes originals in there. He's got Barry Windsor Smith's. He has the Mike Zeck 2-gun Punisher cover that's like in the bathroom. It's like in like a frame. He's got pages from Daredevil, like from Frank Miller's run, like where Elektra gets stabbed. He's got the main Secret Wars cover hanging up on the wall.
Wow, it's insane.
Multiple Dark Knight pages, multiple Watchmen pages. Insane. Anyway, that's the story for another time. But I just received my Eisner. Felix is like, get back to the hotel when you can. And I was exhausted. So I was like, I'll just head back home. I walk in and Felix is holding this big book. It's like this big 14 by 21 sketchbook. And he's like, this belongs to Dave Mandel. It's his Bizarro sketchbook. This thing is legendary. And I was like, okay, well, let me see. And we sit down and we're flipping through it. And it is like banger after banger after banger. And this thing is chock full. It's not like I'm the second person to draw on this. There's a ton of art in here, all the way from 1999 or something.
Whoa.
Oh, dude. Incredible pieces. There's like a Dave Gibbons in there. There's multiple Simon Beasley pieces that are incredible. I mean, it's like there's a Frank Quietly in there that's like will make your brain melt. That's just gorgeous. And so we get to the last few pages, and there's a few pages left that are blank. And Felix is like, "It's your turn." Leans in, no pressure.
And that's why you stayed up super late, so you could try to live up to all the pages that preceded you?
Well, I honestly can say, I mean, there was pressure, but it wasn't like unhealthy pressure. I felt very good. I did feel quite good about tackling it. And Felix that earlier that day had been like, I think I'm going to get Dave Mandel's Bizarro sketchbook. And, you should think about maybe what you might want to draw if he wants to do it. And I just was thinking about concepts, and I just kind of knew what I had in my head, and I knew exactly how to get it onto the page. And I just brought it over to the table, like the hotel table, and I just started going. And it was a blast. And it felt like a full extension of myself, just very natural, like putting the sketchbook down, pulling the pencil out, and I just went and I drew for like 2.5 hours, got the basics down, got the concept down, got all the pencils done, and went to bed at like 3:30 and woke up and worked on a little bit, then went to the show, then came back, worked on it more. This is a long story, sorry, but I was thinking like there's this big like building in the background of Bizarro, the Nightly Void. It's like the play on the Daily Planet. So it's like basically the Empire State Building with like a square planet on top. It was too detailed and I needed it to recede into the background. So I needed a tone, like a gray tone on it. And the leader screen tones that I usually use were not sticking to the paper. Like they would not stick. And it's a sketchbook, so it's like all crinkly and you don't want to use it anyway. And I was like, shoot, I don't know how I'm going to make this work. And I was also working on it like...
The book was turned, so you're working on like a 2-page spread, but it was vertical, right?
Yeah, vertical, like vertical hot dog style.
Yeah.
And it's big. And I didn't even have tones that would fit it anyway. And I remember I tried to glue like one piece of tone to it to see if the glue would work. And the glue would just like made the paper go... So I sent my buddy Yams, he works with Felix, to a Blick to get like an airbrush. And we actually airbrushed it. We airbrushed the building instead, but it was this whole rigmarole because Yams went to go get the airbrush and Yams was wearing a Murder Falcon shirt, and the guy who said, "Hey, welcome to Blick." Holy crap, I love Murder Falcon. And Yams is like, well, I got the good news for you, dude. Like, I'm here for the guy. He needs an airbrush. And his name was Ernie. Super cool dude, helped out Yams. But we got the Copic airbrush, which A, is not very high quality, and B, needs like way too many things to make it work. Ernie didn't know that like he didn't have all the stuff in stock, so he sent Yams back with all this airbrush stuff that didn't actually work altogether. So we get to the hotel, I'm trying to airbrush it, it's not working.
Man.
Yams goes back to Blick, and Ernie sets us up with a different airbrush, and he gave us like a 60% discount or something.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Ernie.
Ernie loves you.
Yams called him to talk about it, and he put him on speaker. I was like, Ernie, you're a gem. You're a mensch. He's like, dude, I love your stuff, man. This is so awesome. It was really, really cool. So I did a little thank you drawing for him and got us the airbrush. And by the time I had the airbrush and was making it work, it was like Saturday night, running out of time, and it was like midnight, 1 o'clock. So we couldn't airbrush inside because of the fumes. We didn't have like a mask. So we had to do it outside. And Yams, we don't have anywhere to go outside. Like we can't go on the street.
Right.
So Yams, like, he just all of a sudden walks in. He's like, I talked to the manager. We have access to the pool area for 15 minutes. And the manager comes out with like his like chain of keys, and he's like, what are you guys doing again? And we're like, oh, we just need to airbrush this one thing. He's like, just don't airbrush the walls, okay? And I was like, no worries, we won't airbrush the walls. Found an outlet right next to the pool. He's like, he saw what we were doing, and he's like, saw the art. He's like, actually, you guys take as much time as you need.
Did you tell David Mandel this?
Oh yeah, I'm sure Felix relayed everything. It was a process.
That is amazing.
We got that airbrush, we got that tone that we needed, and we did it all in the hotel. It was probably one of the best con stories / memories I think I'll ever have. It was awesome. All hands on deck. Like, I was bringing my A game. Felix and Yams were on their A game. Like, Ernie was on his A game. It was the best, dude. It was so fun.
Pool guy brought it. Yeah. You got it across the board. I do think it's interesting though, because we talked about like the way cons used to be for you, and like you're doing all these unreal like high-end commissions. You have all these big projects that your own projects, but also like Transformers, which as we'll talk about, is like a basically like a lifetime goal that you didn't necessarily have, but now that you have it, I'm sure you're pretty stoked about it. One of the things I think is interesting is like you're getting at this really high level. And like sometimes that can lead to burnout, because it's like that's a lot of pressure. I mean, it seems like you're pretty good at managing, but like, how do you keep that passion for what you do and that like desire to be like innovative and keep that exciting approach you're known for? Is there like something you do to recharge the batteries, or do you just have an endless supply? Because you are a very positive person in my experience.
I try. Well, but you're seeing my A face. You're seeing my A game.
That's true.
As soon as I hit stop record, you're going to see me like eat a lot of Chinese food and not talk, and it's going to be disgusting. I think as far as like keeping the energy and the passion, I think it's important for me to try and focus on the things that get me excited still. And that means pivoting. So, I really was not planning on doing any big 2 or licensed books after Do a Powerbomb. I was going to go straight into my next creator-owned thing and just build more IPs and stories. But man, making your own stories from scratch is an incredible amount of work. Overwhelming sometimes, especially when you have a book like Do a Powerbomb, where I wasn't feeling intimidated about working on my next project until I finished Do a Powerbomb, and I was like, whoa, this is really good. How am I gonna top this? I had no idea. No, I was a little stuck. I felt a little bit in quicksand, like I had built like a hole for myself. So when I got the call about Transformers, at first I was very much like, I don't know about this. I don't think so, because it's a licensed book, and licensed books, as we all know, can be very challenging. And I thought it, but the more I thought about it, I was like, I kind of need a break. And after Do a Powerbomb and working on your own stuff, you kind of want somebody to just tell you what to do and being okay with that, and I was like, wow, it's a licensed book. Am I selling out, by doing Transformers? And I talked to my wife about it, and Rachel's like, but you want to do it. I was like, I truly do. She's like, it's not selling out if you want to do it. Like, if you were just doing it for like the money, then you'd be selling out, but you're not. You like actually want to do it. And I was like, I do. I want to draw Optimus Prime. I get paid for it. I thought about it for a long time, and not a long time, but a long enough. And, one of the main things too that got me over there was I had worked with Skybound before. Sean Makowitz specifically, he was my editor on Murder Falcon and Extremity. And he's not an editor anymore. He's like their head publisher now. Mm-hmm. Editor-in-chief. I'm actually not sure his exact title. He's a head honcho over at Skybound. And, he was the one that convinced me to sign on. And if he wasn't a part of the process, I wouldn't be doing it. So there's a lot of factors. It all seemed to kind of seemed to line up. The gears just kind of fell into place. And here I am, working on this Transformers book that I'm having a really good time with. And, I'm just happy. I'm just happy about it. And it's a challenge, but it's a good challenge. And it's also a break. It's not, the toys are literally already made. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine for a hire project like that, where, you're going to have to listen to other people. A lot of that kind of comes down to wanting to do that comes down to probably trusting in the people that you're going to be working with. And you can trust Sean and like you have the enthusiasm. So it kind of seems like it's like the perfect storm for something to come on the heels of Do a Powerbomb where you can kind of let go of the wheel a little bit and just riff and have fun.
Yeah. And by no means am I phoning it in.
Oh, no.
I think with anything, Wonder Woman and Beta Ray Bill, that was a little bit of the same. They were ultimately breaks. They were really fun. It's always a challenge to make stuff, but it's not nearly as hard as making my own stories. And I just, I kind of needed that. Like, I wish I could just be like, I don't know, like Rick Remender. He just like create her own. He pumps them out. And I respect it a lot because I can't do that. I'm like, after one creator on book, I'm like haggard. Oh my God. I just need to chill. And that's what something like Beta Ray Bill and Wonder Woman allowed me to do. And it was the same thing after Murder Falcon. Like I stuck that freaking landing on Murder Falcon, dude. I'm really proud of it. And I'm thinking about like, what's the next creator on book I'm going to do? I have no idea. How am I going to top Murder Falcon? I'm not. So I might as well pivot and try and work on something that people maybe don't expect. And nobody expected Wonder Woman. And I don't think a lot of people expected Transformers either. A licensed book? Maybe people did. Maybe I'm in my own head about it.
I mean, the funny thing about it is like at that point, because it had been out, I mean, Transformers wasn't coming out and there was all these rumors of like, did Skybound buy it? Did they not buy it? And at that point, I don't think anybody had any idea what was coming. I remember I had a retailer texted me like early in the morning. He's like, holy shit, did you see this? Daniel Warren Johnson's doing Transformers. I'm like, how would I see it? I am not literally in your comic shop right now opening copies of Void Rivals. But thank you for letting me know. But anyways, I didn't really know what to expect from you. But the one thing that I do think is interesting about your creator-owned work is like Do a Powerbomb is a fascinating book in a lot of ways. I actually think it's your best thing you've done so far.
Thank you.
And throughout every issue, you kept pushing it further and further up, where it was like,
yeah,
the first issue, I was like, wow, what are you going to do to top this? And you get to the next one, you're like, what are you going to do to top this? And it's like the end, I mean, I'm going to say who they end up fighting is something I would not have imagined at the beginning of the series. But the thing about it is too, though, is it's not just about like the scale and how big you make it. I think a lot of it's a really emotional read in the same way that Murder Falcon was. And I imagine that to some degree, digging into yourself and all the things you're thinking and feeling and everything like that and pouring that into the book, while you're going to get into some territory like that with Wonder Woman Dead Earth and like Beta Ray Bill and the Transformers, it's not going to be the same degree necessarily. And so it's like, it's almost like a palate cleanse. It's like you're going from eating tacos to like, or like a Michelin star meal to having like really great tacos. They're not the same, but it's a bit of a break from eating all the really complicated stuff.
You hear that, Hasbro? You're a cilantro and onion steak taco.
Hey, you know what? A good street taco. Who's going to complain about that?
That's a great way to put it, dude. And I think that, I have to listen to my body and my mind, and my body and my mind was like, bro, you do not have another creator on book in you right now. Maybe in a month, maybe in a week. But I'm sitting here on my butt after Do a Powerbomb, just like not making anything and just having, I don't know what the term is for when you are successful at something and you don't know how to top it. It's just a lot. It's intense. Ugh. And then I won an Eisner for it. And it's like, now what do I do?
Yeah, it's added pressure. Now you're an
it's
award
all
winner.
Downhill from here.
Exactly. Now you're just for hired forever. I wanted to ask about one thing I think is really cool that you do is you just opened your new sketchbook for yourself where you like draw and do your own thing. You're up to volume 47 of those.
Yes.
Is that you just drawing for you?
Yes, I would say so.
Is that important to you?
Yes, hugely important. I sketch in my sketchbook as much as I possibly can. A lot of the times what ends up happening is when I'm in the middle of a book, like Transformers or Do a Powerbomb, I don't really draw on it a whole lot because I'm drawing so much on the pages every day.
Yeah.
But in between projects, it's like a source that I just put into because, I'm not drawing anything. Maybe I'm drawing a cover, but even a cover, the work and the time put into that compared to a page is not that much. So I have the energy and the kind of mental excitement to work in the sketchbook. But one thing that's happened with the commercialization of my original art is, if I just want to draw a picture of Captain America for fun or whatever, I can't help but think, I'm like, oh, this is going to be worth some money. I got to save this, or I got to make sure I don't mess it up, or it's terrible. Don't get me wrong. There's one person at a signing comes up to me. He's like, what does it feel like to know that you could like draw a picture of Darth Vader and pay for a guitar? And I was like, feels pretty friggin' good, bro.
Man, I love that person was standing in line and they're just like brewing up what they're going to say. And that's what they came up with. I mean, they nailed it. They're completely right.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
But it did make he put a point on it. It was like, the nail right on the head. It's like, okay, well, when everything is worth something, which I am not complaining about because it is amazing. I'm not complaining about this, but it changes the way that you draw. Mm-hmm. It just changes the way you approach like putting lines on a page, which I feel should ultimately be like really low stakes, letting it come out the way it should come out. And the sketchbook still allows me to do that because I will never, ever sell a sketchbook. What is in the sketchbook stays in the sketchbook. I'm not like X-Acto knifing my Captain America drawing in my sketchbook out and selling it. I'm never doing that.
Wait until Sotheby's comes knocking.
Yeah, wait until I need to pay for college for my kids or whatever. I shouldn't say never, but like I don't see myself doing it.
Yeah.
There's such a huge part of me. If my house was on fire, I would save them and then my kids. I'm kidding.
And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Summer is in full swing and things are getting hot on Zoop. August is the time for mini launches, including, ironically enough, the book called August by Benjamin Morse, also an anthology from Stack Deck Press, Tony Gregori's Pork Chop Robot Killer, and the end of Glenn Bray's scrapbook campaign. And around the corner in September is Howard Chaykin's first foray into crowdfunding. There's so much more on the horizon, so stay tuned for updates. It takes less than 30 seconds to sign up for Zoop, and the e-commerce style checkout is easy and intuitive. Add multiple rewards and add-ons into your cart, provide some info during checkout, and you're done. No confusing additional steps in finalizing your pledge, and no post-campaign surveys. And of course, the creators appreciate your support. For creators looking to crowdfund your project, Zoop is currently open for submissions. Email them at hello@wearezoop.com to start a campaign. And now, back to the show. Okay, so we're both big baseball fans.
Yeah.
I imagine you've watched baseball movies before, right?
Oh, I love baseball movies.
So a common thing in that is there's these moments where like the player or manager, whatever. My favorite example of this is in Little Big League. It's a movie about a little kid who becomes the owner of the Minnesota Twins and makes himself the manager. It is incredible. I've watched it many times as an adult, and every time my wife is like, "Are you sure this is a good movie?" I'm like, "Yes, I am 100% sure." But anyways, at some point he becomes a total jerk because he becomes this prima donna because he's so successful as like an 11-year-old baseball manager of the Minnesota Twins. And he realizes he's a jerk, and then he goes and he plays stickball with a bunch of kids to find his love of the sport again. And I don't know, I kind of look at the sketchbook, not that you're a jerk or anything like that, but I imagine like your sketchbooks are kind of like your stickball, where it's like, it's something you do for you. It's something that you do to just like have that pure love of art.
Totally. That's a great way to put it. It's exactly that. And it also allows me, because there's no pressure there, it allows me to freely dive into ideas that are in my head or concepts or, it's all just gravy. It could be world building. It could be just drawing for fun. It's just all kind of a positive experience that is very refreshing and soul enriching for me. And it's something that I feel is quite priceless and something I want to hang on to. So yeah, for sure. That's the main reason now. And it's also just really badass to have them all on a shelf when people come over. Be like, "Oh, you want to see volume 3?"
I mean, it's kind of, you could, like one day, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but one day you could have like, I don't know, some sort of like museum exhibit of just like your evolution if you wanted to, where it's like, I'm sure if you looked at 1 and then you looked at 10 and then you looked at 20 and 30 and 47, you would see like a serious evolution in your own work.
Well, yes. I mean, I look through them all the time because I mine my old ideas all the time. And yeah, dude, it's amazing how far I've come, and the sketchbook is like explicit example of that for sure.
Do you ever have ideas for your create your own books come from your sketchbooks?
Yeah, I mean that's how Extremity was born for sure. That's how Space Mullet was born. That's how the image of Murder Falcon was born. The first time I ever drew Murder Falcon was in my sketchbook. I thought of the concept of Murder Falcon in my head first, but then I immediately went to the sketchbook, and the first thing to come out was the thing that I did not draw Murder Falcon that many times. There's a bunch of sketches of Murder Falcon with different arms, like that were more like Neil Blomkamp kind of vibe, like a little more like machinery, not so much Kirby arm.
Yeah.
And I did away with those and just went with a more classic kind of big, shiny arm. But yeah, there's not even that many sketches of Murder Falcon in there because I just nailed it basically on the first try.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on a big sci-fi create our own book right now, and that was born in the sketchbook in 2018 of all places. Like I drew it, and I actually drew it on a church. Like I went to church one day, and it had like they give you like the little piece of paper that has like the here's the hymn numbers and all that stuff. But it's like on a piece of throwaway paper. But there's always some solid blanks, sections of that, because there's not enough stuff to fill it. And I drew this character on it, and it has turned into this huge sci-fi world. And I cut it out and I glued it into my sketchbook. So yeah, the sketchbook is inherently intertwined with the visual building out, of course, of my worlds and my stories. And there's a lot of Lona and Yua drawings in there of Cobra Sun before he even had a mask.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in there. It's like it's going to be like this like record of like all the projects that I've worked on. Like Wonder Woman is in there, Beta Ray Bill is in there. Me trying to figure out how to draw Optimus Prime's damn face shield is in there. I mean, it's all there.
That actually, so let's get into Transformers. I wanted to bring up something. So I was sent the Ashcan, not the physical one, the like a digital version.
Sure.
And I'm going to be the biggest nerd on the planet and tell you that my favorite part of it was your write-up in the back of the Ashcan. And the thing that I liked about it was, as I was reading the Ashcan, now this is no slander to your art. I am not ever going to downplay your art, but one thing I thought it was interesting about it was I was thinking as I was reading it that the boxiness of like the G1 designs has like this natural conflict with the energy of your art and like the flow of your art.
Yes.
And then I read in the back that is absolutely a thing you struggled with.
Yes.
And it's interesting because, yeah, sure, you could say it's like, oh, like Daniel doesn't want to do another creator own book. He's selling out, doing Transformers. I'm like, in some ways, this is harder for you because you're having to work on these characters that naturally do not jive with your style in some ways. And you have to figure out what does Daniel Warren Johnson's version of the Transformers look like, because it isn't just like, I don't know. I imagine there's a lot of rulers involved typically.
Yeah. Every person has a different style, but I found when I was first drawing the Transformers for Skybound, when I had to take it seriously, some of the first things I had to draw the issue 1 cover. So that's Optimus. And I also had to do the lineups. Skybound really wanted all the Decepticons that we were going to have in the story and all the Autobots in like a lineup so they could reveal it. Like,
you mean for like the teasers?
The teasers, yeah, where like they black out the silhouette. And first off, it's just the Autobots and Decepticons just standing, and it's not very dynamic, which is uncomfortable for me already. But then it's like I have to do it, and it's like the first time I'm ever drawing Soundwave, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I found that, when I draw, like, let's say when I drew the van in Murder Falcon,
yeah,
I would like kind of tense up my arm and be a little more representational of like what a metal piece of what a metal van will look like. It just I wouldn't necessarily pull a ruler out, but I would stiffen up and I'd make sure the line looks a little straighter. And I just did that with non-organic things in my books. And then comes Transformers, and I'm like, well, they're non-organic, so I'll do the same kind of style where I'm keeping everything really kind of, I'm not using a ruler, but I'm like I'm being careful. And A, it took too long, and B, it doesn't look good. It
Yeah.
just looks stiff. And the lineups, I have been open about this with Skybound and everyone. I'm like, I do not like the way they look. I feel like I was still learning the ropes, and I can't stand the way they look now. But I've found that the more careful I try to be with the lines specifically of the robots and Transformers, the worse they look. So if I can be messy and gestural, they have this tendency to just like anything, like any organic character, like Murder Falcon, Wonder Woman, whatever, any human in my book, I am gestural because it's like I'm illustrating a character and I want there to be a looseness there in the sense that, we can kind of take our own faces and put it on Charlie Brown because there's so little there. In the same way, I'm hoping that the looseness and the briskness of the characters that I draw will somehow translate to the viewer or reader being able to put themselves into the story in a way that's accessible and fun and not too weighed down. And that just extends and includes the Transformers in every sense of the word. I just want to A, enjoy myself, B, make a good story, and C, have something that just I can be proud of and looks awesome and free.
Yeah.
I love Akira, but man, it's hard to read. It took forever. It takes forever. It's like looking at it. It's like looking at a comic that's like in a museum, like 1, 2, and it's intent. You got to be intentional about it. I'm not saying it's bad because it's not bad. It's one of my favorite comics of all time, but it's a tough read because you're like, this was a struggle.
Yeah.
I feel like that reads. I feel like that translates on off the page to the reader. It's one of the reasons why I love Chris Samnee's work so much. That guy flies and it looks like he's having a good time. Maybe he's not. Next time you have him on, he'll be like, oh, this is so hard.
The funny thing is, though, and we've talked about this before, but I actually wrote about a cover that David Aja did recently. And it was for actually another Skybound book. It was for Firepower. And it's just 3 colors and there's basically no detail to it whatsoever. It's very simple. And it looks incredible. And that's one of the things I think is interesting is like Aja has been leaning more simple. Samnee been leaning more simple. And you've been doing the same thing. I know we talked about this before where you've been trying to find a way to do what you do with fewer lines. And it's interesting to think about that in concert with Transformers, who are characters that by nature have many, many lines. But at the same time, it's like with any project, it's you figuring it out and trying to find the best answer for it. And it seems like you're well on your way to doing so.
And there are a lot of lines on Transformers, but I found, dude, almost the opposite. Like with the blocky elements of the G1 vibe, there's a lot of negative space.
Yeah.
Like if I have somebody wearing a pair of jeans, you can render those jeans all day and it looks natural. I can't just put a ton of lines on like Optimus's leg and have it look right. It has to be
clean.
You got to pick your battles.
I actually think this is weird. I don't even know why this would be the case. I feel like you got the Decepticons right faster. Like Soundwave, you totally nail Soundwave. And Starscream, I think it's just because Starscream's kind of a dick anyways. He just and he's got all those kind of rounded edges to him. He's a little less harsh in his because he's got like all those plane parts that are naturally aerodynamic. Yep. And I kind of feel like as I was reading through that, it seemed like Optimus was one you were really figuring out, but like Soundwave and Starscream, you kind of got right from the jump.
It's funny because Starscream, the Seekers, they are so hard to draw, and it's just sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. I'm drawing issue 3 now, and I'm still like 50-50, like getting them right, and I want to make them just as fun and free flowing as everything else. But yeah, I'm glad you feel that way. It's just a journey, it's like anything. You first issue, you're just struggling, figuring it out. Second issue, you're like, okay, the road's a little less bumpy. Third issue, pardon me, I'm feeling quite confident, and it's just part of the process.
Well, you'd put in a lot of reps. I mean, Transformers were not Star Wars level amount of commissions, but you would do some Star Wars or Transformers commissions, right?
Yeah, but it was like, when you do a Transformers commission, you're just kind of putting your own spin on it. You're not trying to recreate a feeling and a vibe that you had in your head when you were a kid, which is what I'm trying to do with this series, in the sense that I am trying to be very representational of G1. And that was something that Skybound wanted, which I also wanted, which is another reason why I said yes. I was like, look, are we going back to the classic? And they're like, yes, 100%. We want to start at the classic. We can evolve as we go on, but like we start with G1. And I'm like, that's what I want to hear. And that's what gets me excited. So let's rock and roll. But then with that vibe comes, a necessary intentionality of like, okay, how do I make these G1 characters, these designs, how do I make them flow and sing on the page? Because, you know, there have been some awesome Transformer comics, but I have never quite seen the G1 style illustrated in the way that I have had in my head for years and years and years. So with that comes sketchbook drawings of Optimus Prime before I even started. Like there's, I don't know, volume 40. There's so many drawings of Optimus and Starscream and Soundwave, and like a lot of them are the ones that are in the back of the
ash can.
The ash can. Yeah, those are all from one of my sketchbooks. I think volume 39 or 40.
Mm-hmm. They look really amazing. I don't know what it is. It's funny. Like, I was actually, my version of research was I was watching Transformers the movie last night.
Heck yeah.
There is something, I don't know what it is about Starscream. He's such a jerk, but I just love that character so much. His voice is so perfect. There's a big part of me that actually likes him considerably more than I like Megatron. Like in terms of villainy, like, Megatron is just a bad dude, but like Starscream's petty. There's something about that guy that's just like, he is just a classic villain. But I did want to bring up the G1 stuff. I think it's interesting. The thing about this book, and I don't know precisely what it's going to be, but it has Transformers going from Cybertron to Earth. It has a kid getting involved with all this. I don't think he's Daniel Witwicky, but he is a kid. When you were talking to Skybound, like, what did they come to you with? Did they just say, we want you to do Transformers? Or did they come with like a specific vision as to what it would be? Or did they let you define that?
It was a little bit of the mix of the last two that you mentioned. So there was definitely a pitch, a big like world pitch that Robert Kirkman had come up with the Skybound team to kind of get Hasbro on board, which was given to me as a kind of like, here are the big moments we want to hit. And they're kind of playing off the G1 cartoon universe,
Mm-hmm.
And they asked me to kind of work within that framework, which I was okay with because, again, it's less work. And also like a lot of the emotional stakes and the way that we would get to these big moments were up to me. So I had kind of my own ideas of how to get to certain points. And a big part of it, honestly, especially for the first arc, it was just me, us, Skybound, and me wanting to kind of go to the source, the first iteration of the Transformers, the cartoon, and like feeling out that cartoon in a way that made us really excited.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a very loose template there, which I am working off of. I have a tendency to get very much in the weeds of the story very fast. So, all the big points and big story points that Skybound and Hasbro want to hit, I'm like, yeah, they're in my head and it's fine. I can work with that. It's a place to land. But in flight is kind of where I thrive, and that's where I've been spending most of my time.
Same with Starscream. I do think that is one of the interesting wrinkles to this, though, is when you've done for hire in the past, and I'm not going to act like doing DC or Marvel work is easy by any means, but Wonder Woman Dead Earth was existing in a time and a place that literally does not exist in DC continuity. Like you
Correct.
were choosing your own adventure in a time where Batman is dead on a couch somewhere. Mm-hmm. He's a skeleton. Beta Ray Bill exists within the world, but it also doesn't have continuity needs. So you're kind of free to do what you want. That's what I imagine, at least based off of the story.
Yeah.
For you, it's like this is a big part of the launch of a universe, or for Transformers. This is Skybound, a big initiative for them. And this is Hasbro, an entity that is... It's very important to them to maintain the, sanctity of the Transformers, if you will.
Yes.
And so that's a lot of layers that you haven't had to deal with on the for hire front. How has that kind of changed your experience as a storyteller?
It's been a challenge. There's a lot of pressure. I can kind of tell, it's like it's a big moment for Hasbro, for Skybound. For me, it feels like the pressure is on, for lack of a better way to put it. And honestly, I don't think Skybound really wanted me on the book. Like they were like, you got to be on this. Like, we need you. It's you. We love working with you. We love your art. We love your stories. We want you to be on Transformers. We know how much of a fan you are. And I think from the very beginning, Skybound has kind of like, been really excited. And I don't know. Hasbro's going to get mad at me. I don't know that Hasbro really knew who I was. Like when they were like, Skybound's like, we got Daniel Warren Johnson to do it. Hasbro's like, cool. That's what I imagine happened. I don't know. I feel like I know I have some people over at Hasbro that are big fans, but kind of like you said, like Hasbro is huge.
Yeah.
And, I just heard from someone who works with Hasbro a lot recently. He was telling me that, there are people within Hasbro that are like, Daniel Warren Johnson is doing the new Transformers book. And there's like marketing people at Hasbro. They're like, who's that? What?
Yeah.
It's like, because that's not their job, and it's fine. So I feel like in some ways, this process has been like a learning experience for me in dealing with a really large company that has like very important characters and brands that they want to make sure stay financially money-makey. And I'm over here like, well, this needs to happen for the good of the story. So there has been some moments of us butting heads for sure. I'm not going to lie about that. I think in some ways it's kind of a good stretch for me because I'm not used to having that much kind of, input. And I would, of course, rather people just leave me alone and just let me do whatever I want so I can make an awesome story. But obviously that's not realistic. And that's not what I signed up for. I signed up for working on a licensed book that comes with, added responsibilities and things that you just got to deal with. So it's been a bit of an attitude adjustment on my part. And in the same token, there have been some story beats that I've really had to fight for. And I'm happy that I have. And I think Hasbro's going to be happy when the book comes out and people see what I have to offer and what I am bringing to the table when it comes to Transformers and trying to give it a new life in the comic book page that, I'm just excited to deliver. I'm excited for people to see it. And I'm excited for that response. And I'm doing my very best. And it has been an awesome experience overall. Of course, it has its challenges, but at the end of the day, I am sitting down and drawing Optimus Prime and getting paid for it. So
that's pretty good.
And like, it's been an awesome experience. It really has. And I've learned a lot and I'm learning a lot. I'm not even halfway done with the art and it's just getting started and I'm feeling really good.
And now a quick word from one of our sponsors. It's Bad Idea, and Bad Idea is once again doing something? They're telling you that only you can save digital comics from Amazon, as the Renegade publisher is kickstarting a new digital comic from David and Maria Lapham, Scorpio Steele, Bill Crabtree, and Dave Sharp called The Ends. They're describing it as a quote-unquote comic book masterpiece, with the whole endeavor even coming with a pro edition featuring work from other creators. Wait, Bad Idea is doing digital? I thought that wasn't their thing. You might be wondering. You were correct. But apparently, you are no longer so. The Ends is coming to Kickstarter, but also digital at some point in the future. Sounds like a bad idea. It also sounds like Bad Idea. We'll see what it entails when it hits, but Bad Idea, doing its thing on Kickstarter once again. And now, back to the show. I have to ask, has anyone tried to suggest that Soundwave should no longer be a cassette player because it doesn't make sense in 2023?
So funny you mentioned that. When I was talking with Skybound about like what the project would be, like I said, they were like, we definitely want it to be a return to form. And I did all those designs that you see in the Ashcan, and then Hasbro got it. And they're like, oh, we thought Dan was going to come up with his own designs that were like for 2023. And I was like, nope, that's the opposite of what I want to do. That's like a make or break thing. And Robert Kirkman got on the horn with Hasbro and he was like, I'm pretty sure we got to keep it classic for now, guys,
Yeah.
And it was funny because Robert basically was like, it doesn't matter that Soundwave has a cassette player. It just is what it is. We're going to go with it. It's comic books.
Where else is he going to put Laserbeak, man? I mean, come on.
So that was funny. That was like the first thing that we had to work out because I was like, oh, shoot, this isn't really what I signed up for. But Hasbro was like, okay, we'll figure it out. They just wanted to make sure we weren't going to have like 50 issues of Optimus Prime as a cab over.
Actually, I just thought of it. What was the book that you did with Donny Cates? Oh my God, the one with the Ghost Fleet. Ghost Fleet, yeah. I'm like, I feel like you've been kind of training for this moment already because you got the Ghost Fleet going on there. But one thing that's interesting about Transformers, and this came to me when I was watching the movie last night, there's parts in that movie where I watch it and I'm just like, maybe this movie isn't the like greatest movie that's ever existed in the history of time like I thought it was when I was a child. I still love it. But there are parts where like I still feel it like inside me. Like when Stan Bush's Dare starts playing and Hot Rod and Daniel are running and then like Daniel goes into his driver's seat and they go up to the lookout tower and he starts shooting at the plane because there's a hole in it. And like that whole part just absolutely rips. And then like Optimus shows up and like Stan Bush's The Touch starts playing and it's like he's just rolling over people while he's in truck mode and everything. And the thing that I think is interesting about all of that is like all these moments are these moments that are awesome action. They have incredible character beats and they have a ton of heart to them. And the funny thing is like when I was thinking about it, I was like Transformers in a lot of ways, like the version that I grew up with is like a Daniel Warren Johnson story already. And like this is just you tapping into that again.
Bro, you nailed it. You nailed it. That's exactly what I'm going for, that vibe.
Yeah.
That like devil may care. We're here to have fun, but also Optimus, you can't die.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely using that 86 movie as my kind of Bible, my vibe Bible, my character design Bible, like my color guide Bible that I gave to Mike. You know, I was like, Mike, make it look like the movie. Thank you. Yeah. He's like, got it. Like that stuff is amazing. That movie is amazing. I just got it on UHD. My kid loves it.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I want to channel those feelings that it gave me. And it's aged so well. Like, I mean, no offense to the show, but like, I can't watch the show because it's just not that great. I'm sorry. I said it.
You mean like the original cartoon animated
series? The original cartoon. It has a special place in my heart, but I'm not going to sit down and watch it again. I'm just not.
Yeah.
It's not Deep Space Nine, guys.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And the vibes are there and it's funny for a laugh and stuff. But I loved it as a kid. I don't love it now. I'm sorry. This just is the way it is. But that movie, man, that movie keeps it perfect. That's gold level. It was gold level when I watched it then. It's gold level when I watch now for the 50th time.
I get genuinely emotional watching parts of it still. Like or like parts where like I'm like, oh my God, am I getting goosebumps from a movie that I've seen like 200 times? It's like since it came out in 1986. Yes, the answer is yes.
Hell yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things I think is fun about your like initial lineup of characters. You know, for listeners that don't know, I'm not going to make them look at this, but the Autobots are Optimus Prime, Ratchet, Cliffjumper, RC, and Wheeljack. So not only do you have like the classics, but you also have like a big character from the movie in RC.
Yeah.
And then Decepticons, you have Starscream, Rumble, Skywarp, Laserbeak, and Soundwave, all of whom to some degree, I guess like it's mostly Starscream, Laserbeak, and Soundwave. Well, Rumble's in there too. So those are all like movie characters. Was that part of how you ended up with that initial lineup of characters that are kind of factoring into this?
Yeah, I wanted to pick my favorites.
Oh yeah, I believe me, I appreciate the fact you have Devastator in your sketches. I absolutely loved. I always wanted those toys so bad so I could just make Devastator.
Yeah,
but
me too.
I was not that rich, unfortunately.
Yeah, same. Well, Optimus Prime is my favorite, so he's obviously going to be there. It's the most famous one. I don't care. Look, my dentist knows who Optimus Prime is. There's a reason he's cool.
I mean, if you didn't have Optimus Prime in yours, you would either seem like you were just being deliberately difficult or like you have like the weirdest taste. I mean, Peter Cullen has like one of the most, I look at your drawings and I hear Peter Cullen, which is pretty crazy, but it's also true.
Thank you. Skybound wanted us to come up with a team so we could show it in the
drawings. In the teasers.
Thank you, the teasers. So, I was just kind of coming up with some of my favorites and then also like thinking loosely about the story because I was doing this like way before I drew or way before I wrote anything.
When did you do the teasers?
Can't remember.
Were you do a Powerbomb?
No. This was in December. I finished December, January is when I was drawing them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like making an outline while I was drawing them for Skybound, like a story outline. So I was flying by the seat of my pants and I had to come up with team members.
Fair enough. So you just leaned into the ones you liked?
I leaned into the ones I liked.
I mean, why would you do anything else though?
Well, so I got to be honest. Like RC, they wanted a lady
Oh,
Autobot,
sure. Yeah.
which is totally fair. And I'm like, yeah, of course. And I was like, we'll use RC because that's what everybody knows.
Yeah.
And RC is cool, but I have had to, and this is one of those things. It's not, and by no means was I like, no, I don't want a lady Optimus or a lady Autobot on the team. I was like, 100%, totally. Now I need to kind of figure out what RC's vibe is.
Right.
It's cool, it's like a new challenge. Also, like figuring out how to draw her well. Oh my god, it's very difficult.
She's another one that Mike has really got to color right too, because she really pops in the movie. Like the pink is a good contrast with everybody else. My only complaint is I don't know why, but for my entire life, Jazz has been my favorite Transformer, and I have no real reason for that being true besides the fact I think Jazz looks really cool, and I think the voice actor is fantastic.
He's also really fun to draw.
Yes, I like what you just said.
So the thing with like RC is she's like not really, it's like I've learned how to draw blocky shapes so well now, and now I got to figure out how to draw an Autobot that's like slender and with smooth shapes. And so it's just like another thing that the stakes are really low, and it's like not nearly as hard as like coming up with character design for my own characters. So like I sleep like a baby at night now because I'm like my biggest problem is trying to figure out how to draw RC. All right, deal, no problem.
It's interesting because I'm trying to remember. Did you have? I mean, you liked Simonson's Thor stuff, but were you a big Beta Ray Bill fan or a Wonder Woman fan going into those projects? Like in the same way you were with Transformers growing up?
No, not even close.
How does that change things? Like, does that give you a bigger well to dip into as a creator, or does that add some sort of like creative pressure to you? Because like, I want to get this right because this is basically like 6-year-old Daniel's like dream.
No, I would say it was more or less the same because, ultimately I am working for a company,
right,
that is ultimately trying to make money.
Yes.
And it has a tendency to color the positive vibes that I had as a kid, if I'm totally honest.
Sure.
It's just the way the world works, you get into this factory, you see how the sausage is made, and you're still like trying to hold on to your joy the whole time. I had to do it with Wonder Woman, I had to do it with Beta Ray Bill, and I'm having to do it with Transformers now. Doesn't mean it's bad, it's just the way capitalism works. And unfortunately, characters and the way that characters are made, where comics are made, it just has a tendency sometimes to like burn you out and like, oh gosh, having to make creative decisions because of this. And I had to do it with Wonder Woman. I had to do it with Beta Ray Bill, with everything, anything that's not mine. It's just part of the work, part of the game, which is another reason why it makes it easier because you loosen your illusion of control over these things that you don't really have control over. Your work for hire. So in that sense, when I agree to work on a Transformers book, the kid brain in me is like, I'm excited to work on this, but I also am being realistic about what I can bring to the table with anything, whether I work on a Wolverine book or an Optimus Prime book. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to instill, I don't know. It's like, I'm almost like trying to take back what I felt when I was a kid, to try and get that joy back.
What it comes across to me as is like you have to exist within an environment where there's structures and you're trying to you're trying to exist within those structures while bringing that joy you had into it. Because, I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if you know this, but the first comics I ever read and the first comics that made me fall in love with comics were Marvel's Transformers.
Heck yeah, same here. Same here.
I have a comic right over there, Transformers number 41. It was the comic that made me realize I love comics. And the reason why that issue is there's this giant fight on the moon where it's just Autobots and Decepticons just going off on each other. Yeah. And in that moment, I was like, how is it possible that this much awesome could be happening on the page simultaneously? And like, that's the thing, though, is like that existed within structures back then, too. Obviously, Hasbro was
a totally different. Right.
And I think it was Bob Budiansky and like Jose Delbo who did that. They absolutely blew my mind. And the thing is like from the inside, you may feel those pressures and those structures. But for somebody who like is learning to love the Transformers because they watch like Rise of the Beasts or whatever.
Yeah.
Like this might be like the thing that makes them realize that they love comics or Transformers. And like the more you can tap into that reclaim that side of yourself and that love of it, the more likely you're going to be able to get those feelings for somebody else.
You're totally right. And those are words that I think I needed to hear. I don't want to come off negative. I just want to be honest. Sometimes it's tough. And it's not exclusive to Transformers. I felt this way when working with Marvel and DC. It's like I'm coming in and it's like I'm trying to make this as amazing as I can possibly make it.
It is interesting to think because, I mean, the last book you did, Do a Powerbomb, we've talked about it. It's a great book. But it was also the first and only time that you did an Image book.
Yeah.
So you went from working with complete creative freedom to something that's like, there's a lot more structure to it. And that is one of the interesting things is like, I remember talking to Eric Stevenson from Image a long time ago about this, but like some people do not mesh well with the total creative freedom that Image does. Not just creative freedom, but like all the things you have to do to make that book work.
Yes.
And like, that's a lot of work. You're basically running a small business on your own. And it seems like like that kind of freedom and just doing your own thing kind of, it worked well for you, with Do a Powerbomb. Is that something you enjoyed?
I loved it. It was amazing. It was such a cool feeling to know that I was like working on something that I owned. And I was like, the stakes were so high and I was just bringing my absolute A game,
Yeah.
And, but it's unsustainable for me as a creator. I can't work that way on every project because I'll just die. I need to have projects where I take a breath. The stakes are lower. And, at the end of the day, it's out of my control, because when everything is under your control, there's all this pressure and it's like, it's so intense, which is amazing. It's not bad. Neither one is bad. They're just both intense. And whenever I spend too much time on one side of the fence, I need to hop over and do the other one. Does it make sense?
Well, yeah.
And so now, if anything, like working on Transformers, I'm like, oh shoot, I'm getting that itch to create our own stuff again, and be free. And then I'll work on that create our own thing and be like, God, I just need somebody to tell me what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's. I mean, let's go back to my street taco reference. It's like you don't want to eat street tacos forever. Sometimes you gotta mix it up and have like something fancy to mix in there. And like that's the thing is those are different flavors of things that you like to do. And it's like with a sketchbook. It's like sometimes you have to do something different to open your other side of your mind up again. Because if you just did one thing all the time, like if you were just doing Star Wars commissions all the time, you could buy a shitload of guitars, but you'd probably get really burned out on Darth Vader.
I already am burned out on Darth Vader. And yeah, dude, it's 100%. Too much of anything is never good. And I am very thankful to kind of not only have the agency to be able to like go into the certain projects that I want to go into, but also I feel thankful that I am able to kind of recognize like what I need. Sometimes I feel like looking into a mirror is something that, individuals in the entertainment world struggle with. And I don't want to fall into that trap of like getting too inside my own head. Like I want to be able to be healthy. I want to be able to see what's going on and be able to make changes before I turn into, I don't know, before I melt, before I burn out.
Yeah. If you think about it, it's like you could keep just doing creator-owned books forever because that's what you think that you should do. Or even better, because that's what people think you should do because you're so successful at it. Ultimately, you have to do what's right for you, not what's right for what other people think you should do. And like,
totally,
that's tough. I mean, like, that was a big thing I was going to bring up is just like, you're at this like really interesting point where you could kind of, I mean, I don't know this to be true, but I suspect it's true. You could kind of do pretty much anything that you wanted. And most publishers be like, yeah, that sounds good. That seems pretty cool. And I
don't want to say that I can because then I feel like it's going to blow back on me. So I'm going to say I don't know.
Let's just say you have options. But then on top of that, it's just like, I got a commission from you once and I'm very lucky for that. But I'm pretty sure that like at San Diego Comic-Con, if there was like street fights trying to get a commission for you, I'm pretty sure that would be believable. I mean, these things bring a lot of pressures. They bring a lot of freedom also. There's all these different things that kind of come with it. And it's just kind of interesting because it seems like the answer for you from a career standpoint is like, no matter what you do, just find what the right answer is for you. And just lean into what feels right in the moment instead of just leaning into what you should do because that's what's expected of you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a good way to put it. Honestly, like if I wanted to, like, I guess be like really financially successful, I probably just keep doing creator-owned books and building out the intellectual property, but I can't. It's like impossible for me. I can't do it. I want to be able to do it. I felt terrible when I was like, it's hard to explain. After do a Powerbomb, I just shut down. I just couldn't make anything. I was like, I just want to draw Snake Eyes and Optimus Prime.
Well, dude, the good news for you is you have the exact job that allows you to do that.
It is. It is. I'm so thankful. I hope I don't sound too complainy. I am very happy.
When you're done with do a Powerbomb, you're like, I just can't do it. Does that come down to like the ideas side where it's just like, I just can't just like, on a whim, just like brew up the next do a Powerbomb or something like that? Or is it more about you need separation to live in a different world or something like that?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's also unique to me being a writer artist because I really need to find a new visual way of showing a new world and a new story. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just going to keep drawing the same thing. You know, I can see how writers can come up with more stuff because so much of the world building has to happen on the art side just for everything to work, you know, like so much that visual problem solving happens on the art side. You know, there's a bit of a I when I'm concepting out in a story or idea, I'm like, I have to do all of this. And I'm like, oh geez. But I'm actually writing something that a very close friend is drawing currently. I'm not sure when it's going to come out, but it's my first real like creator-owned thing that I'm just writing. I'm also doing a little bit of the art, but it's been awesome and very freeing and a total change of pace, which is something that I'm very happy about. And I don't know, more news on that hopefully soon.
Has it been tough to shut down your art brain?
No, it's been, if anything, my art brain comes more alive because I see art coming in from this person that shall remain unnamed. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. Let me riff on that, or that gives me another idea. And I'll sketch things in my sketchbook too for the story, and I'll send it over to this person and we'll go back and forth. And it's awesome. It's really awesome.
That's amazing.
It is awesome.
Last question I have for you before you have to go and go deep into your Chinese food. Alex Chung, a patron, had a very important question. He apparently had just bought the Murder Falcon EPs, and he wanted to know, will Daniel be recording an EP for his upcoming Transformers run, and could it possibly include metal covers of The Touch and Dare?
I feel like there might be legal stuff that keeps me from actually putting on Bandcamp, but I think I'm going to try.
I've heard Stan Bush has really good lawyers.
I don't know if I do.
I made that up. I have no idea if Stan Bush is even alive.
I really want to do like a really heavy metal version of one of the songs.
Yeah.
Maybe not a Stan Bush one because they're so like well known. Like I'd almost want to pick something off the beaten path, like Instruments of Destruction. I convert before you.
I thought you were going to say Dare to Be Stupid.
Or like a heavy metal version of, heavy metal version of Dare to Be Stupid. Or a heavy metal version of Autobot Decepticon Battle by Vince DiCola.
There we go. I like it.
Yeah, he's an incredible soundtrack. Incredible soundtrack.
You do have a lot of options. I don't really know. Stan Bush is alive, thank God. I want to note that for all the people that were worried about me introducing the doubt into Stan Bush's current presence. But I actually had no idea you did Murder Falcon EPs. So now Alex has given me a goal for something to track down for myself. I do think that's fun though. It's like, it's interesting to see that you have these varying passions. Like you had wrestling and you had comics, and then you have music and you have comics, and you have all these different things that you kind of like bleed in together so you can embrace different sides of you into these different projects. And I don't know, that's super fun. I mean, especially if you're into metal, apparently, like Alex is.
I love music. I love recording music. I love making music. It's always more easier to do a cover than to come up with your own riffs and songs. So I'd love to do it if I can find the time before October rolls around. We'll see. But a fun fact, my EPs that are for Murder Falcon, for Murder Falcon. Do you remember the band name that the band is called in?
I don't. I can't believe I don't.
They're called Bruticus.
Bruticus, yes.
Which is a play off of the Decepticon Bruticus that gets made by the Combaticons, like in season 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a Transformers reference in Murder Falcon however many years ago.
Oh my god. You really are going full circle with this.
Well, Bruticus in the Transformers is spelled Bruticus. So to avoid any legal problems, mine is Brooticus. So if you just Google Bruticus with 2 O's, you'll find it.
Oh my god, amazing. Well, Daniel, I am like the rest of the world. Actually, I have to say really quick, a retailer, when that one was texting with me, I think that his text said to me, all it said was DWJ on effing Transformers in all caps. So clearly the world is excited for you on Transformers, but the world is always excited for whatever you do. But whatever you do next, we're going to be reading. But that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about the Transformers, Stan Bush, and everything else. I appreciate you taking the time.
Till all are one.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel with cartoonist Daniel Warren Johnson. You can find him on social media at Daniel Warren Art and his work in the upcoming The Transformers at Skybound. Big thanks to Deanna Chapman for editing this podcast. If it sounds better than usual, it's because of her. Love Off Panel, want to support it? Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts today and give the show a rating or review while you're at it, but 5 stars only. You can also support the show by backing it on Patreon. Find the show at patreon.com/offpanel. And when you back it on there, you get early access to each week's podcast, as well as weekly content and more. Want even more? Subscribe to my subscription comic site Sketched at sketch.com for long-form articles, interviews, and the rest of the site's content. You can find Off Panel and Sketched on social media by following on Twitter and Instagram at SketchComic, or following me at @SliceFriedGold. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including Christina Merkler, Andrew Lehman, Mike Hansel, Scott Place, Darcy Van Polgees, Kevin Bides, Travis Schmeiser, Tom Evans, Natalie Mockreed, Reed Beeman, Kelly Sudconic, Max Wood, Jeremy Lambert, Brian, Matteo Ciccati, Chris Dorade, Nir Levy, Dennis Hoffman, Jason Hussa, Kieran Gillen, Jonathan Kent Uratam, Henry Johnson, Jingo Boren, James Tynan IV, Chris Langford, Jason Wood, Tom Peachy, Ben Damstead, Rom V, Nick Walker, Patrick Coyle, Isaac Oren, Scott Carpenter, Rent Narb Studios Comics, Capes and Tights Podcast, Klaus Van de Ven, Brian, Subman Industries, Jack Mulqueen, Kyle, Carl Kerschel, Robert Misell, Elza Chartier, Luke Nakashoji, Dr. Luke, Scott Hazelwood, Canadian by Proxy, Bradley Rader, Carl Choi, Brandon DePillis, Patrick Brower, Declan Shalvey, Dan Garino, Adam Freeman, Ben Wild, Brian Klein Q, Nick Bennett, Birdcage Comics Cafe, Susanna Polo, Reed Hinkley Barnes, Mario Tiambank, Andrew Carita, Matt Mahoney, Stefan Hall, Philip Myra, Chris Bachala, Torin Grunbeck, Fuzz Bubbles, Christopher Todd, Transmitter Down, Waltz Comics and Books, Akil Wilson, Alex Dimitriopoulos, Terry Dodson, Wesley Giff, Sean Kirkham, Julia Anta, Brett A. Schmidt, Jason Goodmanson, Paul Reinwan, Vita Ayala, Akil, Philip Seavey, Al Ewing, Ryan Alcock, David Kelly, Nick Polito, Matthew Groom, Jason Assey, Adam Bogart, Matthew Taylor, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, David Baraldi, Nick Hall, Bjorn Basin, John Hendricks, Steve Anderson, Ian Maxwell, Cliff Chang, Carl McMahon, Scott McGovern, Nathan Fairbairn, Adam Highfield, Fiona Stables, Mark Abnett, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim Demonakos, Norbert, Nick Lowe, James Kaplan, and Mission Comics and Art in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. A quick thanks to Wolfpack for letting me use their song Outro as the show's opening theme, and to Upright T-Rex Music, who wrote and performed Off Panel's outro and ad music just for the show. Check out their music on Spotify because it's completely delightful. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.